I said I've been going to Universal's Horror Nights every Thursday, hence why my videos have been late lately. And well, I thought I'd show you some of the Black Phone 2 part of the Terror Tram, cause it's pretty cool in a manner of speaking, and it got me even more excited for this movie. I've been loving Horror Nights this year. Black Phone 2. What happened to the word the? No, seriously, I've noticed this trend in movie sequels ever since like Avengers. Sometimes sequels leave out the word the from the first movie, like Incredibles 2 and etc. I don't get it and I don't really like it. Bring back the word the. So The Black Phone 2, as it should be called really, is the sequel to the horror hit The Black Phone, which came out a couple years ago, which is based off a short story written by the son of Stephen King, Joe Hill. I loved that movie. It was one of my favorite movies the year it came out, and therefore this sequel was on my most anticipated movies of 2025 list. But I was like, is it gonna hold up? It is a horror movie sequel after all that doesn't really have source material like the first one does. So Black Phone 2 takes place in 1982, 4 years after the events of the first movie. Siblings Finn and Gwen Blake are still kind of dealing with the post-traumatic stress of what they went through in the first movie with the grabber. But now, due to Gwen's supernatural dreams, they're drawn to a camp out by a frozen lake called Alpine Lake Camp, and mysteries unfold from there that have to do with family secrets, and also, the grabber is back from beyond the grave and he is pissed off. He wants revenge for what Finn did to him. You know, killing him. And so now we have our sequel to The Black Phone. I was kind of nervous going into this. I didn't see any reviews. I just wanted to form my own opinion because I really loved the first movie. And I walked out of this one pretty satisfied. I loved it. Alright, Mason Thames. Can we talk about him for a second? Cause holy shit, this guy is really coming up as an actor. And I thought he was great in the first movie. I thought he was great as Hiccup in How to Train Your Dragon earlier this year. But here, Black Phone 2, this is the best acting I've seen from him yet. Cause my god, you sympathize with him so much cause he's dealing with this bullshit, and by that I mean, of course, the PTSD from what happened 4 years ago. He does have a way of coping with it, but just the raw emotion you get from him, one scene in particular, I was like, yeah, Mason Thames is going places. Cause I'll be damned if I didn't feel bad for Finn at some point. But I dare say the main character in this movie is his younger sister Gwen, once again played by Madeline McGraw, cause she's the one who brings about this news story because of the supernatural dreams she gets, which are not exactly the most pleasant, to put it mildly. No, they're kind of driving her nuts, understandably so she has to deal with that bullshit too. She has heart, you feel bad for her as well, and she's still quite vulgar. Like there are a couple of parts where she badmouths someone, I was like, geez, I wish I were as creative with my insults as she is, cause she's good. And the chemistry between Mason Thames and Madeline McGraw, as brother and sister, since they have a lot more scenes together in this movie than they did in the first one, for obvious reasons, they have great chemistry, you love them, and you want to root for them to make it through this, which is going to bring us to the return of Ethan Hawke as the grabber, again, this time returning from beyond the grave. I will say, he doesn't have as much screen time or focus in this movie as he did in the first one, which means, yeah, that poster is kind of misleading, although it does make sense why it is that. People know that mask. He does take up a chunk of screen time in this movie. He is still important. And in the scenes he's in, Ethan Hawke is still, of course, amazing in this role. And you really get the feeling that this character, he was a bad egg from the start. Just a really sick, twisted dude. Which makes for a great villain in my book, because you know that there have been people like this in the real world. And it's freaky shit. Now, this movie does what a lot of sequels do, and that is take the concept from the first movie and expand on it. Black Phone 2, I will say, does expand on, I guess I'll call it the lore that the first movie established. The rules and the lore and the backstory of our characters and how these supernatural dreams of Gwen's work might be a bit of a stretch, but I totally bought it. And I thought it was really cool. I can't recall, in recent memory anyway, having seen anything quite like this before. And I was hooked. I mean, that being said, it feels like half this movie is dream sequences. There's just a lot of them in this movie. It does feel like half the screen time of it. But I like how they're executed. They're really grainy and shaky cam-ish. Looks like old stock footage. It's a neat effect. It's a neat filter. They're how you can tell if you're watching a dream or real life. And actually, what's going on in the dreams is just as important, if not more important, than what's going on in real life. They're not just there for the sake of being cool or interesting or whatever. They matter. They're relevant to the story. I'm just saying there's a lot of them. And this movie does take a little bit to get going, noticeably more so than the first movie, in my opinion anyway. It's just slow in the setup. But that being said, everything that does happen in the setup is important. None of it is pointless. So really, the slow-ish setup, which I'd say is a good third of the movie, Act 1 if you will, it does feel slow, but trust me, once the movie gets going, once they get to the camp, the movie picks up. And it's awesome until the end, dude. I was into the story so much because of the characters and how emotionally attached I am to them. You know, because of what happened in the first movie. The emotional bond you build with these characters in the first movie movie is still strong here in the sequel. That's how you do it, man. Gotta give it up to director Scott Derrickson, who came back from the first movie to do this, and his script, which once again he co-wrote with C. Robert Carlyle. So yeah, I should have known. Same director and writers came back from the first movie to do the sequel. It should also be good. I mean, didn't work for Joker, but anyway, moving on. So this movie being a horror movie, how are the scares? It's pretty scary at times. This is the kind of horror movie I really love, which is the kind that doesn't focus on the scares first and foremost, but instead focuses on the emotional characters. But when it is scary, it's pretty scary. Couple of good scenes with some tension that just winds up. You don't know if these characters are gonna make it, and yeah, I did fear for them, not gonna lie. Couple of jump scares in this movie too, but really only a couple, like just 2 or 3 in this movie's entire hour and 54-minute runtime. One I remembered from the trailer, so I did make sure to cover my ears so I wouldn't get that jump, says the guy who's been going to horror nights every week. But yeah, some good horror elements in this movie besides the jump scares. Gruesome imagery and the like, it's good. And also, like the first movie, Black Phone 2 touches on some pretty dark shit. Like dark realistic shit. One scene in particular reminded me of Amori, which if you haven't played, you totally should. But yeah, man, this one scene I was like, holy fuck, that is straight up something out of Amori and shit. Like emotionally speaking, it was awesome. I mean, the characters do sometimes fall into the trope of making stupid decisions, I'm not gonna lie, they do. Like, they are given plenty of opportunities to leave. Like, at one point, a character's like, alright, we should just leave. Let's go, let's get in the car and drive away because we need to be shut of all this and we can be safe. And Gwen's like, no, we need to stay because we need to solve this mystery and get from point A to B, trying not to spoil it. And I was like, all right, on one hand, I get it because if you left, you wouldn't have a movie and I want to see what happens here. But you know, at the same time, you're like, if I were in your shoes, I would just leave. Hence, that's the horror movie trope. So yeah, that is in the movie, but I let it slide because the rest of the movie is so damn awesome. Some funny moments too in the dialogue. And yeah, it's not like forced humor, just a couple of subtle, funny moments here and there that just ease the tension or let the dramatic scene end on a lighthearted note, which is how humor should be used in a movie like this. Because if you look at It Chapter 1, for example, great movie, I love it to death, too much humor, in my opinion anyway. This movie balanced the humor right, I felt, because it was scarce. It's more about the drama and the mystery and the horror, it being a horror movie and all. And then to bring it all home, once again, this movie delivers some straight up feels, man. I said this in my review of the first movie. A scene towards the end that almost made me tear up. Well, same here again in the sequel. One scene towards the end, I was like, oh man, I'm tearing up. Damn, Derrickson, Cargill, Black Phone, I guess I'm just a fan of these movies, man. It's good, what can I say? As for the score, which was composed by Atticus Derrickson, who's Scott Derrickson's son, it's good music, but what I noticed in this movie is really there are a lot of scenes that don't have any music at all. A lot of dialogue scenes that are just silent in the background except for the words being spoken. And this is actually something that a lot of music heads don't take into account, is that sometimes lack of music can be just as effective, if not more so, than a big dramatic score. Because sometimes silence is what is required to really focus on what's being said or done. But that being said, the score itself was pretty good too. Scary horror sounding stuff with the synthesizer and sound effects, pretty standard. The score didn't really stand out, but it did its job pretty well. So in the end, Black Phone 2, just like its predecessor, is one of my favorite movies of the year. I still love the characters, I still care deeply about them, and I did not want the grabber to kill them from beyond the grave, cause he's just a sick, twisted son of a bitch. The script is great, the horror's intense, and I look forward to the day where I can watch both movies back to back here at home. Are we going for a trilogy? Black Phone 3? I'm on board, let's do it. Cause nothing burns quite like the cold. For Black Phone 2, I will say, go see this movie right now. And side note, if you haven't been to Universal's Horror Nights yet, there's only a couple of weeks left. I strongly recommend you do it, cause it's awesome. So, Black Phone 2, have you seen it yet? What are your thoughts on it? What do you think of it compared to the first movie? And do you want there to be a third? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!